Hey guys, and welcome back to another ProGuides video. My name is Nathan Ng, and I'd like to welcome you guys back to the series. This is actually the second part of Bad Habits, so if you haven't really been able to check out the first episode, make sure you do that as well. In today's video, we're actually going to be discussing some of the bad habits people have said that they had in our previous video, so that should be pretty fun. Before we do that though, it's of course time for our question of the day. And today's question is, what would you like to see a video about next? I had a lot of fun reading the comments about all of you guys that had bad habits, and it brought me a lot of inspiration as well. So now I'd like to know what you guys want to hear about in a more general way. I'll make sure you guys get the required guides afterwards. Okay guys, let's go ahead and talk about our first bad habit, and that is panic spraying. According to the comments on our previous video, a lot of you guys struggle with panic spraying. What we mean by this is that whenever you spot an enemy, you instantly start firing all guns blazing without stopping to aim properly or control where your bullets are going. Although panic spraying of course makes a lot of people look like their aim is really bad and as if they had no gun control, luckily this is often not the case. A lot of people might actually think that panic spraying doesn't necessarily stem from bad aim, but rather either from panic or poorly trained aim. Poorly trained aim is different from bad aim in the sense that when you go to a site like aimbooster.com and you are able to click on all the targets and aim with decent success, but in-game against real opponents, it's not so much the case. Let's start talking about the first potential reason, panicking. If you ever think that your panic spraying comes from a panic itself, there's a few things that you can do. You can either take the time to take a deep breath in between rounds and during downtime or other things that might help you calm down. Or the thing that we advise you working on is not getting panicked in the first place. We here at ProGuides believe that prevention is better than the cure, so if you can live by that too, then this method will be for you. NATO Sathix, a pro player currently playing for Nordavind, actually made a video about how you can avoid panicking specifically to improve your 1Ds. He made this video over 6 years ago, but to this day it is still pertinent. We have also made some adjustments to it to make sure that it's a little bit more effective, but this is what we're gonna have to do. First, you join a free-for-all deathmatch server and all you have to do is select any combination of weapons and then just run around with your face down with the same audio settings that you use when playing competitive or maybe even a bit louder. Usually when we panic is because we get scared, so the goal of this exercise is just to be as helpless as possible and just accepting that you're gonna die. Sounds pretty terrifying because it is. At first, it should be a little bit scary when getting shot at by opponents that you don't see, especially since the volume is hopefully a little bit loud, but after a while it won't scare you anymore and then you'll be relaxed. After you feel like you're getting fully used to it and getting shot at doesn't bother you anymore, it's time to bring out the Desert Eagle and start getting some 1Ds. Now, your goal should be different and your focus should be on being as accurate as possible and not missing any shots. You should make yourself follow one simple rule, and that is if you miss a shot, you have to suicide. It doesn't matter if you die because you're taking too long to aim, you are not allowed to fire multiple shots at a single target, no matter how hard that may be. If you do miss a shot, you're only allowed to do one of two things. You either type kill in console and kill yourself that way, or you take out your knife and run towards your opponent. Only then, in your next life, you get to fire another bullet. Doing this is quite frankly a bit tedious, but it will make sure that you have great results in 1Ds and overall calmness, and most importantly, it will definitely get rid of your panicking problems. If you do find yourself still panicking regardless though, even after trying this routine a couple of times, I advise before playing your games to go back running with your face down and just doing that again for a few minutes before as some sort of warm-up. For the other option, if it's not panicking that's ruining your spray but instead poorly trained aim, the solution is quite similar. If that's the case, we advise you do the following. Like with the previous method, you're gonna have to join a free-for-all deathmatch server, but unlike the previous method, there will be no running face down shenanigans. Instead, we recommend grabbing an AK-47 and making sure that you kill opponents with short 3 to 5 round bursts at the head. During that deathmatch session, just make sure that you're not spraying at all. If it's not the panic that's making you miss, it's habit, and unfortunately the only way of fixing that is actively spending time on it. If spraying is something that you struggle with, try bursting instead. It's going to take a little bit of time to get used to it, but I guarantee you if you do work on this, you will see results. The second bad habit that a lot of people suffer from is relying on the reflexes too much instead of just on their crosshair placement. As talked about in the 8 aiming secrets that almost nobody uses, this isn't a game about aiming, but rather a game about aiming as little as possible. Your goal shouldn't ever be to hit the nicest flick, but instead to be winning aim duels as consistently as possible. You don't win the game from breaking your wrist, but you do from consistently getting opening kills. To do that though, you don't really need to have the best aim, but rather the best crosshair placement. CSGO is a game about milliseconds, especially the higher up in the matchmaking ladder that you go. Because of that, you need to maximize the advantage that you have in gunfights. And you can do that by developing a great crosshair placement. If you have good crosshair placement and you already put the crosshair on the head of the opponent before you even peek, you're probably going to end up winning that gunfight unless you whiff completely. Or, well, if you panic. Nothing is an ex-pro player that used to play for teams like Cloud9 and Complexity, and he actually also stood in for Mouse Sports in a tournament that plays second. In one of his videos, he actually discussed the importance of crosshair placement. He explained that in one of his videos that the player that wins the aim duel is decided by which player has the better crosshair placement, not aim. The reason for that is simply because it honestly doesn't really matter if the player you're peeking has sick aim, because if you don't even have aim but only have one really nice click, then you'll be winning regardless. If you have bad aim but you crouch peek and constantly start spraying at the guy that's successfully pre-aimed, even if they have better aim, you're gonna get away with that kill, even though you might be taking a little bit of damage. Basically, if you rely too much on your aim, you're gonna end up losing fights and games against players who are way worse mechanically. And the opposite of that is true as well. You can get away with having much worse aim as long as your crosshair placement is on point. Realizing that is very important, but that doesn't really mean that your habit is suddenly fixed, so let's go ahead and get into that. If you don't rely on your crosshair placement as much as you should, then there's one really easy way to efficiently train this. All you have to do is temporarily change your sensitivity to something that is extremely low. As a guideline, you should not even be able to turn it around with one swipe. If your sensitivity is that low, then there's no way you're going to be able to flick at people across your screen, and you'll be forced to have good crosshair placement, or you'll just start losing every single fight. Doing this is going to be painful, but if you have enough time, you will quickly realize that you can adapt to how important having good crosshair placement is. If you do get used to it, then of course you're allowed to change back your sensitivity of your preference. But if you do that, make sure to keep an eye out as you do not fall back to your old habits. Another bad habit that's also detrimental to improvement and impact on the game is playing too passive. Playing too passively is an issue that a lot of players have, especially ones that really worry about their stats. Why do people worry about their stats? That's actually quite logical actually. If your main goal is constantly having good stats, it's important to take a little risk. And if you do risky plays, you do have the chance of either them paying off or failing completely, which means depending on how well you're playing, you're gonna have great or horrible stats. If you always play really passively, you will probably always get kills in rounds even if your team loses them. These kills aren't the most impactful, in fact they are far from it, but they are kills that count on the scoreboard nonetheless. The reason why playing too passively is an issue is because doing so will ultimately mean that you are not the reason that your team is winning or losing, meaning that you have zero impact. If your teammate managed to push out B and kill both site defenders while you're lurking on A, then you're probably gonna win that round even though you didn't really do much to contribute. You probably will get 1 or 2 kills regardless. If the opposite happens and your teammates try taking B but fail miserably, you probably also get 1 or 2 kills on rotating CTs, or maybe you just come and get some exit frags. Your goal, especially if you're playing without full premate, should be to have as much impact as possible, so once that ends up winning the game, you can take full credit. Or if the opposite happens and you lose 0 to 16, you know that it was probably your fault and, well, you played to the best of your potential. And if you want to pinpoint those mistakes, you could go ahead and check out ProGuides.com to get yourself a coach or another pair of eyes to help you guys out. If you guys spend the entire game sitting in T-spawn with a scout or op holding on dust to mid doors, you aren't necessarily the reason you ended up losing the game, but you also don't really get to take full credit on the rounds that you did end up winning because your impact was 0. Personally, I was stuck in Face It level 6 for a long time. Back then, I was really wondering what I needed to work on because I believe most of my games were already pretty strong. I always had good stats and barely made any mistakes, or, so I thought. It was only until I got a coach and watched a demo with me that I was told I was playing way too passively. I barely ever made an impact that round, and I did not really bring up any strats to the table, and the worst thing that I ever did was not realize it. Realizing that you're playing too passive is really difficult to do on your own, especially if you think that's normal. If in the next game you play, you notice that you aren't at all times trying to come up with a plan to win the round somehow, then, well, you're probably in the same boat as I was. To get rid of this, I recommend you guys really look over your VOD reviews and record your games. Well guys, that's going to be it for this video, and I hope you guys really did enjoy it. And if you did, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. We really do love reading all your comments. While you're at it, head over to ProGuides.com where you'll be able to find some of the world's best coaches to help you guys unlock your full potential. It personally has really helped me a lot, and I can't recommend it enough. If a personal coach isn't something for you though, and instead you'd rather just to lay back and watch a video, then we have that too. On ProGuides.com, not only will you find coaching, but you'll also find specific courses. The main one, and the one we'd recommend watching the most, is the one that was made by the one and only Simple himself. It's fair to say that he knows what he's talking about because he is the #1 player according to HLTV in 2018 and also #2 in 2019. Anyway, I hope you guys are having a wonderful day. I hope you guys are staying safe and healthy, and well, good luck on your climb. Peace.